Please enjoy this message from David Arquette sent in by the fabulous Carrie Tenney.
Hey Ryan, how are you? Thanks for doing the Scream podcast.
Like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
I don't know.
You have to have a favorite. What comes to mind?
You are listening to Scream with Ryan C. Showers, the podcast for Scream fans just like you. Join Ryan every week as he takes a deep dive into the horror film series that defined the 90s and redefined the genre. Scream with Ryan C. Showers is your source for scene and quote analysis, character dissections, and the latest news about upcoming installments of the Scary Movie franchise.
I hear you like horror movies, Curly, but do you like them as much as him?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. In the lead up to Scream 7, I couldn't be more grateful for everybody out there who listens to the show, who supports my podcast here, listening every episode, or on social media on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. If you would like to become a member of the podcast, come to the group Zooms, be on the show on a one-on-one or small group setting, consider joining the Patreon with Scream with Ryan C. Showers. In addition to the benefits of coming on the podcast, you can also join our social media groups, in particular on Instagram. That's the main hub of the podcast. I also do a monthly audio commentary of a Scream movie or a Scream-related film. From now through April, we are going to be having a new Scream movie audio commentary. So if you would like to hear my thoughts in an audio commentary form in the style of Wes Craven, Marion Maddalena, et al. Of the original trilogy, please consider subscribing and supporting the show. Thank you to every single person out there who subscribes on Patreon. So I need to thank TJ Jones, who does all of the graphic design work for the podcast, and Ashley Summers, who helps me produce the show every week. In addition, I need to thank everybody over at Patreon, including the Stab Investors and Daddy Ghostfaces. The Daddy/Mama Ghostfaces, they include Carrie Tenney, Corey Wilson, Andrew Dominguez, and Brett Janovich. I also need to thank all of my Stab investors. They include Mark Harim, Josh Carr, Allie, Tamika Jones, Christian Ranke, David D., Gustavo Mora, Jess Mariano, Joey Nabrini, aka The Vault, John Cardney, Josh Camillari, Scream Queens Podcast, both Josh and Justine, Kevin Abner, Mark Vieira, PW05, aka Philip Douglas, Roy Garza from the Hoodie Talks podcast, Ryan Not Dying Young, Sam Levy, and Stevie Shears. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. So for today's show, we are doing something a little bit different. You know, one thing that really bothers me about a discourse is when people who are kind of toxically positive about everything. I try to, on this show, the tagline for my show is the film critic meets the Scream fan. That's part of what I try to do with the show. So, I don't try to let these movies off the hook and just say everything is great, everything is sunshine and roses. And so I talk about constructively, these movies all the time. But I've never done an episode where I specifically talk about the flaws in each of the movies, because back, 5 years ago when I started the podcast, I was afraid that if I did that, then I would be seen as, quote, negative. But you know what? It's been a long journey here, and I don't give a fuck anymore. So I'm happy to be talking about the flaws in the Scream movies because it's good and smart to do so. So everyone, to help me with this big task, everyone, please welcome my friend, Pablo. Hey, Pablo.
Hello, Ryan.
So this is your first time ever on the podcast. That's crazy.
Yeah, this is amazing. I'm so happy to be here. A bit shaking, nervous. After so much time listening to you, it's amazing to be here. So thanks for having me.
Of course. So you came to me with this topic. I didn't message you and be like, hey, thanks for subscribing to the Patreon and following me and being nice. Do you want to talk about why Scream sucks? I'm just teasing. But why did you want to talk to me about the flaws?
It's funny that I love these movies. The first time I'm talking about things I don't like about these movies. It's crazy. I know.
Yeah. The thing that's important to remember too is we can love Scream despite pointing out different flaws. And I think to love something and to be a fan of something is to better understand it. And I think a way of better understanding something is understanding what works, what doesn't, and why some things just don't seem right in the movie or why some movies are better than others. So it's part of being a fan, and I think it makes you a better Scream fan. And it doesn't mean that you hate any of the movies except for Scream 6. works. Of course, I'm just teasing. But, it's just, so it's a good thing to think about these things in a smart way because then we get smarter Scream discussion and smarter fandom and hopefully smarter movies. Fingers crossed, Kevin Williamson, Scream 7. But yeah. So Pablo, you told me something off air and it kind of rocked my world. Please tell the listeners what you shared with me before we pressed record.
Okay, I have to confess, I haven't watched the trailer for Scream 7.
That is crazy. Like literally, even like the people who like don't want to be spoiled. Like I know tons of people like this. They've all watched the trailer. You're literally the only person I know, literally, who has not seen the trailer. My mom has seen the trailer.
Listen, I usually like to go to movies without knowing anything about them. I hate watching trailers because, in the end, they show always too much, especially in a movie like Scream. And I love to just sit there, know nothing, and just let myself be surprised and enjoy it. And I don't know, it's something that with the trailers you lose a little bit. And it was very hard when the first days when the trailer came out and everyone was talking about it. It was all over the place on socials. I was, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It was very, very hard, but I was there. I'm strong. I keep myself strong. And up to now, I mean, if I have done it until now, I think I can wait until the movie comes out.
Well, I agree. I think you are kind of holding strong here. Like I give you immense kudos. And I do think like, the sad thing is like you are probably going to have a better viewing experience than everybody else just because knowing nothing and just knowing seeing what I have seen in the trailer and elsewhere, like, and just seeing what how everyone else has reacted to the trailer, I can't imagine like just seeing this movie completely fresh, nothing, so I really hope that you have the greatest time seeing Scream 7. And in fact, after Scream 7 comes out, I want you to come back to the podcast and tell me what this experience was like because again, you're like a social science experiment. Like you're the only person I know who fits this criteria.
It's gonna be fun. Yeah. Then of course, then I will watch the trailers. I will listen to the podcast episodes about the trailer reactions because of course I haven't listened to any of those. I have skipped all of them. And then it's going to be a very fun exercise for me to see what all of you said about the trailer, what you were expecting, and then the reality. I did it with the previous streams. I listened to the reviews and all the episodes when you were analyzing the trailer. So it was very, very fun experiment for me. And I want to do the same now, but even without knowing anything. So it's going to be very, very fun for me.
I love this. You know what? Let's book it. Like April, May, we will do this episode where, because after you've kind of like, after you've seen the movie, of course, but then you've listened to the stuff and like what the experience was like for you. One, seeing the movie, fresh eyes, right? That's like a whole episode of itself. But then also like going back and like seeing how everyone was thinking about and talking about things in October, November, December before the movie. So you're in a very unique position, my friend.
Let's do it, of course, please. Oh my God. I mean, but yeah, I know I missed a lot. I know that I'm missing all the excitement and all the conversation and what we are expecting, what we are not expecting. I know I'm getting this up, but I think it's going to be worth it. Totally when I'm sitting there at the cinema.
I agree. So Pablo, this is your first time on the podcast. Please tell everybody, what is your Scream story? What does Scream mean to you?
Well, the first time I knew anything about Scream, I think it was I watched a trailer at the cinema. I went with my father to one summer to a small cinema in a small town by the sea in the north of Spain, where I'm from. And yeah, I think we were going to watch. Probably it was when they showed Grease for the anniversary or something like that. So I was like 12, 13 years old, and they showed the trailer, and I was impacted. I really was super scared about it, but I didn't see the movie at that moment. I think the first two Screams I watched them at home, rented the tapes, and that was my first experience with it. And the first Scream I watched at cinemas, I will never forget, was Scream 3.
Oh my God.
And I got spoiled. You don't know how I hated this person. We were on the way to the theater to watch the movie, and then we meet a friend in the street. And we're going to the cinema. We're going to watch Scream 3. Well, do you know who the killer is? I said, of course, no, please don't tell me. Well, I don't know, but do you watch Felicity? It was terrible. Yeah, so of course, as the movie starts, I see this face. Oh, I know this guy from Felicity, obviously. It totally destroyed the movie for me.
It's terrible. And that's so funny. Do you watch Felicity? Wow. I mean, that's a funny way to say this. But so fast forwarding, all this time, are you, did that ruin Scream 3 for you at the time?
It was a fun experiment. At that moment, I must say I was not such obsessed with Scream. It's become later with time. So at that moment, it was one more movie. I have to accept. I don't have this story that many people share that since I was super young, Scream was super important for me. It was not the case. It grew on me later on. It became this comfort movie later on. I didn't have the VHS at home, so it's not movies that I watched a lot, to be honest. There was this TV channel in Spain that was focused on movies. So it was 24 hours a day movies. Always around Halloween, they showed horror movies, obviously, and always the Scream movies at some point. And when I caught them, it's like, oh my God, yes, Scream 3, whatever, amazing. And I really enjoyed it. But I was not in this moment of watching them a lot of times. It came later with time. With my boyfriend, I must say, he started educating me a lot in horror movies, showing me a lot of the oldest horror movies from the 80s. And it made the Scream movies grow a lot on me. And now I think I made him hate a little bit the Scream movies. Yeah, I watch them too much.
Well, I don't think that watching Scream often is a bad thing. So, Pablo, please tell everybody, what is your Scream ranking?
Oh, first will be Scream 1. Number 2, number 3, I would say it changes between 4 and 3. But for now, as for today, I would say it's 1, 4, 3.
Okay.
2, 5, and 6. Well, first, yeah, I like the original ones. I include 4 in the original ones. I'm sorry, they belong to the same pack for me. And the first one, of course, the first one is the first one. It's a classic. I think everyone or almost everyone agrees here. There's no discussion. Then number 2, I put it on the 4th position because there's something I know that theoretically is like the perfect sequel. Everyone says this and everyone agrees on this. It doesn't connect so much with me. I don't know why. I remember you talked with someone a long time ago in your podcast, and they mentioned something super interesting. It was probably about the second movie not being connected to Woodsboro, being so far away in college and so on, and this makes a little bit disconnects with the, I don't know, with the atmosphere or call it whatever. And I think this is one of the reasons that's make it not connect with me so much. And then of course I'm not so much in the sorority and all these fraternities and all these kind of things. It's a world that doesn't connect much with me. Probably this is one of the reasons. 4 and 3, I don't know. Sometimes it's 3 the second, sometimes it's 4 the second. But I love the Rena story, and I love, of course, the Sydney story. I think number 4 will be the second because it has the best Gale. I think this is what makes the to be in the second position for me, Gale forever. And then number 3, what can I say that you don't know now? And then 5 and 6.
But you have 5 above 6. So what's the difference? And do you strongly feel that way? Because there are some people who just kind of like shrug and just kind of, some would say just 5 ahead of 6 just because it's a little cleaner, or Sydney's in it. It's Sydney and Dewey, I should say. But, some people are kind of meh on it. Some people strongly think 5 is the better film, or 6 is the better film, or the more fun film. So what's your position on those two?
The problem with 6 was that I enjoyed it a lot at the cinema, I must say. It was a fun ride. But that was it. I think that after being a fun ride, the digestion was a bit more difficult. You start seeing all the flaws, and I think it works well as a horror, gory movie, whatever, but not much as a Scream movie for me. I think it disconnects from a lot of the things that makes Scream special. And 5 is cute. 5 connects to the story. It's in Woodsboro. I think that the general movie is sustained in a better way than the number 6. Of course, Gale is there, Sydney is there, Dewey is there. Probably this makes everything a bit easier for us. But 6, fun rides, but as a Scream movie, I think has a lot of flaws.
Well, as the episode where we're going to be talking about the flaws in Scream, I love that we start out with that sentiment about Scream 6, but I'm just throwing shade. But, and I'm also going to throw some shade too. You said in Scream 5, Dewey's there, Sydney's there, Gale is there, and the shady part of me feels like, yes, that is the difference between Scream 5 and 6. It's like Gale was in Scream 5. not in Scream 6, even though she has that amazing scene. It's just like her presence is so not felt outside of that sequence in the apartment. Like, even in, I mean, I think the scene outside the police station it's such an embarrassment to the franchise that is one of three scenes that she has. It's an embarrassment to her character development, the 30 years of writing for this character, the 30 years of Courtney Cox playing this character, 30 years of fans loving this character. And then, when she's in the shrine, I feel like her presence just isn't felt in the same way that the film forces Sam down our throat or the other characters. So it's just, it's just a shame. I feel like we haven't seen Gail since Scream 5. And I know that's not true because she is the best part of Scream 6 and in her scene, but I miss her so much.
I totally agree. I mean, I told you, for me, 4 is up there because it has the best Gale,
Yeah.
and sadly, 6 has no Gale. I mean, Gale is not there. Courtney Cox is there, giving her face, but the spirit of the character is not there. It's totally a shame.
Oh my God. That just was like the best statement I've heard all week, that Courtney Cox, her face is there, but Gail's spirit is not there. That is so fucking apt about Scream 6. Wow. And I have to say, I love this opinion about Gail in Scream 4. She is fabulous in Scream 4, isn't she? I mean, like, the comedy, she's a bit campier than before, but that's, I think, such a great aspect of her. I think that, like, her energetic performance is part of what fuels Scream 4. It makes it so engaging in the first half. I think the world of Gail Weathers in Scream 4.
Yeah, I think the movie shines when she's there. I mean, the Stabathon is the best. I love the comedy, as you say. You will see when we come analyzing the first of the movies, you will see how we connected. I'm not going to spoil you. I'm just teasing you, but it's somehow you will see the connection.
Okay, well, I need to give you the Scream with Ryan C. Showers speed round questions. It's so fun to go through these with new people to the podcast. All these years in, I love hearing answers, and like no matter like because like I've chatted with you online, and like I kind of I've gotten to know you a little bit. I still you'll still surprise me with your answers here. So okay, let's do it. So Sydney, Gail, or Ty?
Sydney, sorry, Gail, Sydney.
Well, in fairness, we just gave Gail a big moment. We gave her in the past 5 minutes more than Scream 6 gave her. So we love you, Gail, but Sydney's great too. So, all right. Sam or Tara?
That's it, Tara. I don't get the hype of this girl. I forgot the name. What's the name of the actress of Tara?
Jetta Ortega.
Okay, sorry. I don't get the hype with her, and with all the flaws that Sam has, but Sam,
Yeah. Okay, cool. Dewey or Chad?
please,
Yeah. Favorite movie buff?
Mickey.
Mickey. Nice. That is a great answer because no one has ever picked him for this because they, I guess, associate him more as a killer than a movie buff, but very savvy. I like it.
It's a movie buff. Come on.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess this will dovetail, but who is your favorite killer?
I think Jill.
You're a Scream 4 person, so there you go. Cool. Favorite opening and favorite finale?
Favorite opening, I mean, number one, I think. Typical, no surprise, not original, but number one. And favorite finale, oh my God. Can I say 4 again?
Sure. Yeah. This is your speed round. So,
4. Let's go for it.
okay. Scream 4. Favorite scene overall, and you can exclude Casey Becker from this.
The sound booth in Scream 2.
Nice, nice. I like the Scream 2 representation here. Favorite kill or death?
I know it's very underrated and the kill itself might be a bit bad, but I love Rebecca.
Okay.
Because maybe not the moment of the in the parking or whatever, but it's when she's been thrown away, how it represents, how it breaks the moment they're in public, and the press conference that from Dewey, I think how it represents, and it smashes everything and clashes the situation. I love it.
That's a great answer, and no one has ever really talked about like the fact that she gets thrown from the balcony, but that's really astute. Also, because she is a media person, isn't it funny that she kind of falls onto the media blitz, the media truck, and she's like, her death happens in a press conference. Details like that, where it's like so layered and rich and like literature, kind of almost like poetry. That's Wes Craven. That is all Wes Craven, man. I love it. Oh, okay. Favorite supporting role across the franchise?
There's so many. Okay, I will say Rebecca again. Let's go for it.
Wow, fuck me, wow. I love it. Are you yay or nay on Scream the TV series?
Nay, I don't remember it much. I must say I should rewatch it, but it was a bit like a meh.
Who is your biggest crush in the franchise?
As a buff, I would go back to Mickey. I'm sorry.
Very nice, very nice. And do you have I know this is your first time being on the podcast, but I feel like we've known each other for a while. Is there anything, like a favorite memory you have about the podcast?
It's more what the podcast represents to me. For
Okay.
me, the podcast is the beginning of the weekend. Usually, when it's Friday evening and I finish work and I close my computer, I start doing the cleaning of the apartment because it's like, hey, I do this. And then once the apartment is clean, the weekend starts for me. And then I'm watching to the podcast while I'm doing the cleaning. So it's like a weekend vibes for me. That's what the podcast represents for me.
I love
Good
that.
vibes for the
Thank
weekend.
you.
Yeah.
Also, good for you in terms of like on Friday, like the last thing I want to do is clean. So I celebrate the weekend before I do my cleaning. So I like that discipline that you have. That's nice.
But thank you for giving me this good vibes. Really, it's like you set me in the mood for the good moments of the weekend.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for listening. So let's dive in now to the flaws of Scream. So basically, the assignment that I gave Pablo and myself was come with like one, maybe two flaws of each film. It can be like, a broad flaw, like something inherent to the whole macro movie, or a very specific moment or scene or something. So I have my list typed up, and I kind of practiced this morning on one of my friends. I kind of like sent them a voice memo and kind of like thought about how I would approach this in a constructive way. We're gonna just start. We're gonna go in order of the films chronologically. I'm gonna throw it to you first. What would you say is the biggest flaw or flaws of the original Scream?
This was a very tough one because it's a perfect movie. What can we say? I mean, it's very pretentious from me saying, hey, this movie has a flaw. Who am I to say that? But thinking about this, and probably this is the deepest flaw in the whole list we're going to go towards. I promise there will be like more lighter and more superficial ones. But this one, okay. For me, it's about not something about the movie itself, but something about how the movie has aged in some way from a today's perspective.
Okay.
How we see Maureen
Hmm.
and her quote unquote slut shaming. I
Hmm.
really hate. I mean, I know is the trigger for everything, right? Her having sex outside of her marriage, blah blah blah. And I understand that Sydney has this trauma, and it destroyed her family, and of course, it triggered all the happened afterwards through all the movies. But there's no moment, or at least I don't see a moment in which we allow Maureen to be a woman that
Hmm.
has makes her own decisions, has sexual drive, and she just have their own choices in life. And we
Hmm.
only see that. I mean, cheating on your husband is not correct. I am not defending that, right? But hey, she is a woman. She's an adult woman making her own decisions, and not everything has to be caused by a trauma. Of course, as we discover then in Scream 3, of course, and then you can say, "Ah, she was doing these kind of things because of the trauma that she carried." It might be true or not, but hey, let's accept from an open perspective that an adult woman can make her own decisions, have sexual drive. And this moment when Sydney says, maybe I have the bad seed in me or I will end up being like her. I understand the trauma, but in the bigger perspective of the movie,
Hmm.
for me, it's a little bit old school,
Yeah.
and it denies this capacity of an adult woman to make her own decision. If it was a man, probably it would have seen differently. That this constant slut shaming, understanding again all the trauma that carries, but for me it's a bit too much from
Yeah.
today's perspective.
So, it's interesting because here's what I would say back to that. Because I see where you're coming from. And I actually every time that Maureen is slut shamed, or at least like I guess she is kind of slut shamed in Scream 1 in terms of like think about this before the finale. Like, the way the characters talk about her. And that example you gave with Sydney, that's a really good example because I was about to come on here and be like, well, Pablo, you're wrong because no, but I was going to say like Sydney never talks about like, oh gosh, my mom slept with so many people. I hate that she was this way or that she it would be that she was such a slut. Like, I don't think Sydney ever really talks like that. And I guess like the Sydney of 2 and 3 doesn't. I guess Sydney does literally say the bad seed. I kind of like would say that every time that Maureen is slut shamed in the original trilogy, it's mostly from the perspective of the killers. Like, and it's in the finale. Like, Roman slut shames her, Mickey and Mrs. Loomis do, Billy and Stu do in the finale after they're revealed as the killers. And it's very heavy-handed. And the way I've always read this is that like I don't think the film itself and its messaging is slut-shaming her. The killers who are evil and bad people, they are doing the slut-shaming, and the film is kind of pointing the finger and saying, no, that's wrong. That these people are crazy, lunatic, bad, killer, murderers, and they're slut shaming her, and we don't approve of this. And I think that's how I've always understood the films as, because I think that like the story of Maureen Prescott through the years, I think that they do give her that context, and that's the great thing about Scream 3. I think giving her that agency, I think, and the understanding that she wasn't, a quote, a slut. I think that comes in with Scream 3. I don't think that the films themselves slut shame her, but I think Scream 1 is probably the murkiest in terms of what you just said, the bad seed, and like the Richard Gere Gerbil story. With Tatum, that conversation with Tatum, it kind of feels a little slut shaming, I guess, if I look hard enough. So I'll give it to you. I like it. Do you have anything you want to respond to? I said.
No, I totally agree because I understand, and I also saw that that's most of the people that are openly and constantly slut shaming are the bad people of the movie, right? Are the killers. I agree, but and I also
And the
understand that
cheerleader and the girl in the bathroom, them too.
but I mean, do we like them? Probably not.
No.
But no, I also understand that, hey, this movie is from the 96, and I'm reading this from a perspective of end of 2025. So then, of course, and now quoting Scream 6, sex positivity was not a topic back then. Sorry for mentioning Scream 6 in this moment. But hey, you can see, of course, a different perspective and how we have evolved as society.
You know what's funny? I would love to see Quinn Bailey and Maureen Prescott sit down and have a conversation. I think that would be an interesting discussion, don't you think?
It would be, I mean, Maureen, I'm sorry, I think she was a very advanced woman and she would have a lot of things to say. I mean, I really think it's a shame a little bit. Again, it's a product of its time. The movie's a product of its time, and we have to live with that.
And I think with Sydney, it's different. Like I know, like everything you said, I agree. I defend Maureen Prescott. I think she is, even though we never really see her talk besides her as a ghost, we don't see her in action. She's still probably one of the best characters in the franchise, just because what happened to her and her history and her past is so rich and interesting. And I love that about her, and I will defend her to my dying day. I think with Sydney too, I guess I forgive it a little bit too, because when you're the kid of a marriage who is being split apart by cheating, I think you probably receive that information a little bit differently. Maybe that's why Sydney felt so deeply about it, But I agree with you. I think that this could be a flaw of Scream 1. So love it. I think that's a great perspective. I'm so glad you brought it up. Okay, so I have two for Scream 1. These were easy. I was able to this isn't fair, okay? But I do think that Gail and Dewey, and kind of Randy, okay? I think that they are a bit more generic as characters in their character development than compared in the sequels. And I know it's unfair to compare, we can't hold Gail Weathers and Dewey of Scream 1, the reporter and the cop, to the standards of Gail and Dewey in Scream 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. The survivors, the complexities, how they evolve as like individuals, as a couple. I think that they are just a little bit more one-dimensional here than they are in the sequels. So that's a flaw if I had to give one. So there's that. And like if I had to be really specific, I think that like, the shots of Ghostface in the bushes in the grocery store, I understand what Kevin was going for. He was going for a commentary, a pointing of like, haha, look at this. This is just like the 80s slashers with Michael and Jason, but for me, I think that like and I have no evidence for this. This is just my opinion. I think that if the Wes Craven of like the Scream 2 and 3 era, I think that he probably, if he had a choice to go back and cut those two moments, he would have. I think that there's almost like by Ghostface being in the grocery store and in the bushes, it's almost like he didn't have the tone of Scream 1 completely 110% figured out in the same way that he does for 2 and 3. So what are your thoughts on Gale and Dewey and then Ghostface in the bushes?
Ghostface in the bushes, that was also on my list. I thought, yeah, it was like a small one. That's why I didn't bring it up, but totally agree with that. It was totally, it's like, doesn't make any sense. It clashes a little bit with the tone of the movie, it doesn't make any sense. All the other things make sense when you analyze everything. I think there's no flaws in that direction. But this, hey, now people are saying, hey, it was Roman. Yeah, of course, we have to find an explanation, but no, it's ridiculous. And I agree. that probably they would have been cut if, with the bigger perspective of all the movies.
You see what I mean? If you have to point out a flaw, like I think that like you could look at them and just think they're a little bit less than what they are in 2 and 3 and 4.
Yeah, I think that's what I say. Hey, it was very difficult to find flaws in this movie because it's a very perfect movie. Because even this moment of Ghostface in the bushes that can be a bit ridiculous, but I think they play the role in the movie because they are it's like this commentary and so on. So yeah, they make a purpose. Maybe it's not super logical. It's not, but it makes a purpose in the idea of the commentary and the meta thing of it all. But yeah, I mean, if we have to find a flaw, we will have to be very, very, very picky.
Very cool. So, all right. So next, let's talk about Scream 2 because you already alluded to it, and like your kind of thing about the way that like Scream 2 is enveloped by the fandom as like the perfect sequel. And like that there are some people, and I love Scream 2 people. I love original trilogy people. But what I don't like is when Scream 2 people are snobby about being Scream 2 people. You know what I mean? Like Scream 2 is so much better than the rest of the sequels. Like how far up can your nose go in the air? Like I just, I just don't like that because like there are, I think it's reasonable for someone to rank Scream 2 lower. Some people have called it boring and long. Like it's too long and too lengthy and too unfolded. I don't know if I agree with that. And like here's the thing, like it was really hard for me to find a flaw with Scream 2. It's on an objective level. So here's what I'm going to say. I do kind of see like the length and like the how prolonged it is as kind of as the flaw that some people think that it's kind of boring. I think that you can read into that a little bit. And here's how I'll characterize it for me subjectively. Like whenever I watch Scream 1, 2, and 3 back to back to back, I think Scream 2 is a little bit less engaging, a little bit less timeless than 1 and 3. Like 1 and 3, I'm always engaged no matter what. Like there's something so effortless about me watching them. And with Scream 2, sometimes I think that it kind of lags on a rewatch. But not really, because I still love rewatching it. It's still, I love it so much. It's equal to Scream 1, in my opinion. But if I had to say, subjectively, I kind of get what people say about it being a little bit long, if that makes sense. So there's that. And like, I do think if I have to, Mickey being MIA for half of the movie is a problem. I remember when I first watched Scream 2, like I kind of forgot about him. I forgot it because the last time we see him is cafeteria. And then flash forward 50 minutes, and that's when we see him revealed as Ghostface. Like, I think that it's completely reasonable to think that is kind of a flaw of the movie. So what are your thoughts on my flaws? And I'm passing it over to you for yours.
Yeah, a bit lengthy and boring. I mean, I wouldn't call it boring, but it's a little bit less enjoyable. It's less of a fun ride for me. I totally agree. At some point, yeah, it's not this crazy ride that 1 and 3 are, for example. But yeah, the disconnection I have with them with this movie probably is again more about the topics, college sorority, and all these things that don't connect on a personal level so much for me. And Mickey disappearing, to be honest, it doesn't annoy me. I understand. I totally understand the analysis and it makes total sense, but I never felt it that way. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to find flaws. And you mentioned the cafeteria, and I have to confess, this is the most hated scene of the whole Scream franchise for me.
Oh, really?
It's the cafeteria moment. I hate it. I don't know why. Don't ask me why. Something super personal. I know it's very, very subjective, but I hate the movie. Sorry, the movie, the scene. I know it's a reference. I know everything, but it's extremely embarrassing for me. I really hate it. Also, it's with the character. God, I have a problem
Derek?
with names today. Derek, thank you. There's something I love what he represents. I love the impact that he has on Sydney's arc, and everything is perfect. But there's something about him on a personal level. I don't know, something on the energy that also doesn't connect with me so much. So I probably put all these elements together with him singing there and having this embarrassing moment that makes me hate this scene. So for me, as a very superficial and subjective flaw, there it is on the table.
I appreciate that. I appreciate your perspective here because that, it's so funny to me. Remembering a time before Scream 4, before Scream 5 came out, and the cafeteria scene was something that people harped on a lot as like their least favorite scene in the franchise. So I'm glad that you brought it up because if we're talking about flaws, I mean, that is something that the fandom has discussed at length. So I appreciate your perspective.
This is it's a very personal perspective, and I couldn't call it a flaw. It's a flaw for me. But I have another flaw that for me, it's about making sense or not making sense. And I know we all love the opening scene on Scream 2, right? It's like up there for mostly everyone. And yeah, I love the public. I love what it represents. I love the commentary and I love Maureen's death. I think it's creepy, amazing. It's one of the best moments ever. But on the openings, there's always something about Ghostface playing, Ghostface manipulating, and Ghostface creating the situation, right? And bringing the other person to their territory like a mousetrap. And for me, the first kill when Maureen's boyfriend is being killed in the bathroom, for me, it's random. I see it a bit too random. And if you don't tell me that it was planned and this person was a specific target for a reason, I would have just thought it was a random kill. And for me, that's what makes it the opening a little bit not so great for me because it's disconnects from the other ones. I know, of course, when Scream 2 was made, all the other movies that came afterwards were never thought. They never thought that there would be a lot of openings with this structure, ghosts playing. So I understand that Scream 2 was doing something different. But in the context of all the movies with behavior of Ghostface, I think it's a little bit weak for me.
Well, also, like, here's the thing. Let's just think through this because, like, in some respects, I think that like Bill Stevens getting stabbed through the bathroom stall, it's really cool, right? And I think a lot of people think it's cool, and we don't really think about the logic of it all. And just think about Ghostface. Think about Mickey. How is Mickey to be sure that one? That Phil Stevens would come into the bathroom. Two, that he would come into the stall right beside him, not a urinal. And three, that he would put his ear against the bathroom stall, and four, in the exact place where he could stab it. There's a lot of hoops that you have to jump through to get to that, to that place. So I think that like it's worth, I think that this is a kind of a flaw if you think about it. Like it's cool, but it's not 100% like sound, if that makes sense.
Exactly, agree. I mean, again, all the openings are Ghostface being super smart and bringing the victim to the place they want. And here's the opposite. It's like super random, as you said. All the elements like what if he didn't want to go to the toilet? What if the pissoir was free? What if what? So of course, yeah.
Yeah. Well, good. I like it. I like that. Oh my gosh. This is kind of cathartic. I feel like I'm like levitating right now. I feel like we're like shedding skin or something. So this is good. I like it. I'm not throwing shade at Scream 2. It's just like, whenever I say it's kind of long or boring, I'm saying like there are people out there who think that. And I don't think that it's boring, but I can see where that perspective is coming from, if that makes sense. So, chill your tits, Scream 2 fans. All right. So now we're moving on to my baby, which is Scream 3. I'm going to take this one and then I'm going to let you tackle Scream 4 in terms of going first. So with Scream 3, this is very sensitive because Scream 3 was maligned for so many years. And I think this is like in the context of the Scream discourse today, when people get bent out of shape about the way that, say, I criticize Scream 6, or other people do Scream 5, I think people don't understand how vitriolic, how toxic the Scream 3 hate and 4 to an extent, but especially 3 was. So with that being said, I have thought about the potential flaws of Scream 3 for the past 20 years. And, there are many things that people will say about Scream 3 that I think are incorrect, wrong, stupid, whatever. But I think that like to pick out a scene or to pick out a flaw that, that kind of summarizes what Scream 3's weakness is, I actually have a very succinct answer to this, which is the fax machine sequence. It is like for me, and like I don't. This isn't to say that I don't enjoy it. Like I think there's a lot of wonderful things in the fax machine sequence. I think Parker Posey's great. I think Courtney's great. I think like Dewey and Gail, like their romance and how they evolve in that scene is great. I think Wes's direction is really fun, and there is some cool imagery there. And I actually like the explosion. Okay, I think it's a cool visual effect. That being said, I think that like for me, the potential flaws of Scream 3, you could look at just these 10 minutes of film, and be like, if they would have cut these 10 minutes out of Scream 3, I don't think that Scream 3 would be as hated as it is. I think a lot of people, when they think of Scream 3 as the worst movie in the franchise, they think of the fax machine sequence. They think, well, Sydney isn't there, and because she's not in this scene, we feel her absence in this part of the movie, which is fair. She has the most screen time. She is the main character, but if you're going by, that argument that Sydney doesn't feel as prominent in Scream 3, the fax machine is a big part of why. So there's that. But my friend Josh Carr, we were talking about it today. He said that this is kind of excused because Gail and Dewey are co-leads with her. It's okay to give them a moment before Sydney comes and takes over the movie in the second half. So whatever. But the second and third is like, Scream 3 is most criticized for logic holes, and comedy. So I think that the logic plot holes that people criticize Scream 3 about are dumb. And I can argue against every single plot hole that anyone could possibly say about Scream 3. Any single one, the entire movie, I have an answer for. I don't have answers for the fax machine, though. There are so many things like, if the electricity goes out, how is the fax machine still working? How did Roman know exactly that Tom, Angelina, Dewey, and Gail would show up at Jennifer's house to send those pages? Like, there's a lot of things about the sequence that just don't fully make sense. And I can't argue. I don't have an answer for that. Versus, I have an answer for everything else in the movie. Okay, so there's that, and the comedy I think is the most ridiculous here. I think, like, in terms of the tone of the movie seeming more comedic than the other movies, I think you can look at this sequence and see and feel it there. Versus, like, I don't think it's as comedic. I don't think Scream 3 is as comedic everywhere else in the movie as it is in the fax machine. So I feel like, again, if you would have just taken these 10 minutes away, a lot of the flaws of Scream 3 would not be there, if that makes sense. So I think all of the criticism kind of trace back to this sequence or what this sequence represents. So I don't know. That's my soliloquy as the Scream 3 expert. So Pablo, I'm turning it over to you. What are your thoughts, and what would you say is your flaw?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that I'm a logic person. I need to understand the logic. Yeah, I get it. I get it. All these issues with the fax machine, yeah, doesn't make any sense if you think about it very, very, very slowly. But I accept it in the original tone and style of the movie. It doesn't annoy me much because, and this also ties with the comedy, and each one of the original 1, 2, 3, 4 Scream, each one has a specific style to it. And the style of 3, either if it was an accident or not, because of the problems that they had, I don't know if it was just an accident or it was planned, but it has a specific style that ties with everything, with the setting and the topic. And for me, everything works together. So it's not a flaw for me, the comedy part of it. It's just a stylistic decision of the movie that makes it completely different from 1, 2, and 4, but still being inside of the same universe. So for me, I wouldn't consider it as a flaw. But, and here comes my flaw, and please don't hate me.
Okay.
I'm really, really sorry, but after being very, very easy with the movie, loving it, and accepting all the other things that people think as flaws, as not flaws, my main flaw is corny Cox. And I will
Okay.
explain you why. Please don't kill me. My problem is not Gail, and I think it's corny. Why? Because I love Gail in the movie. And I love that she's driving the movie so much. I love her game with Parker Posey, and I love the duo. But I know that I'm not original. I know that people have pointed this out a lot, and it's about the performance. Sydney and Dewey are in the movie, which is a little bit more goofy or comedic than the other ones, but still the characters remain the same. Gale sometimes is a little bit out of the rail, seeing the whole arc of Gale in 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6. Well, 6, whatever. But I think, yeah, it's probably a bit more goofy. The physicality is a bit more Monica, as many people said, and I kind of agree. Not only her, but even sometimes the stylism of it, the outfits, they look a bit weird to me, being Gail, when she's wearing this, I think it's this red trousers with this sweater, with a white sweater with this neck. For me, it looks a bit off Gail, seeing her in the other movies. But this all together, the physicality, the performance, the stylism and everything, to me, brings me a little bit out. It's still Gail. It's in the style of the movie, but it's a little bit off if we see her in perspective.
You know what, this is a good thing to bring up, because a flaw that people sometimes will point to with Scream 3 is that Courtney Cox, it feels like she's playing Monica more than she's playing Gail. And I used to think that was kind of true, but so here's the thing. Let me just back up. I do see what you're saying, that the Gale of Scream 3 is a different Gale than Scream 2. And I've always interpreted that as like Gale's evolution in Scream 2 from kind of bad to good, per se. That's who we get in Scream 3 is Gale tamer and more human post everything Scream 2. So that's how I've always understood it. But I think it's completely reasonable to say that it was also Courtney Cox not showing up to her full potential. So I get that. But, in terms of her acting choices, like, I don't know. Like I see a little bit of Monica, like it's a the first scene on the set of Stab 3 with the yellow bag. Like there are some line deliveries where I'm like, okay, I kind of see what people are saying about her Monica coming out as opposed to not Gail. But other than that, like I don't really, over time that's kind of worn off for me. And I've started to see Courtney as just kind of giving a very solid performance, not necessarily going comedy or going drama, just kind of like doing both and like just kind of representing Gail for who for the spirit of who she is. So I see what you're saying. I think it's a worthy criticism. It's worthy to bring up here because again, this is another part of Scream 3 that people have criticized since the dawn of times.
You mentioned the evolution of the character, of course, but then we have four. That's why seeing the whole arc for me, that's when Scream 3 stands out a little bit, maybe in the wrong way, considering the all five movies plus six.
Yeah. No, I feel you. So yeah. Well, you mentioned Scream 4, so let's move on to Scream 4. What would you say is your big flaw with Scream 4, which is your favorite sequel, by the way?
For me, it's a flaw. It's something that I miss more than something that doesn't work. It's something that I would have liked to see more, and it's the family relationship because we don't see Sydney with her family besides her father, and then we finally have not only her cousin but also her mother's sister, which is a super big thing. And I know this is again not an original topic. I know that it has been discussed forever, but I think this was a shame and a wasted opportunity because oh my god, we could have seen so much in that Maureen's sister. We could have seen more development, more dialogues with them, and probably if we had seen more than of that, the death would have had much more impact because even the death of her aunt for me is like, yeah, okay, it's sad. And then, of course, Cindy needs to run away, but it doesn't allow to have a moment because, oh my God, it's her family. Sydney doesn't have family during all the movies, except
Yeah.
from the father at the beginning, which we see a couple of times, and that's it. So I think it was a pity a little bit.
That's a good way of putting it. And like I agree with you. I have to co-sign. So it's hard because like, if you were just looking at Scream 4 by itself, without like us knowing so much about Maureen Prescott and us being like the Scream mythology being so intertwined with Maureen Prescott, would we feel this way about the aunt? We probably would because of what you just said, that we only really know her father. But, you're completely right. It's coming off of Scream 3, where the whole movie is about Maureen Prescott and her past and her history. And the complications of this woman, that we didn't even get to meet formally, right? And we just came off of not only 3, but kind of a whole trilogy about her. So I think that it's a shame that Kate wasn't developed more. I think that we could have had more scenes with her. I think we could have had better scenes with her. And that is, it makes me sad. So I love her death. I really do. But I do think that like they dropped the ball with writing Kate, not only as a character within Scream 4, but also Kate as Maureen's sister. So there's like two different layers, I think. There's like the one, like just as a regular normal character in the world of Scream 4, they could have done a better job with. But then also the fan in me being a nitpicking pain in the ass is like, this is Maureen's sister. Please give us details and gravity and weight. Please, please, please. So I think it fails on both of those. So I agree with you.
Yeah, this one, I think she says something like, yeah, she had wounds, but I had wounds too. Blah, blah. It's like, oh my God, there's so much there that we could have dig a little bit and discover things. What does the relationship with Maureen or whatever? Or I don't know. It's a shame. And I think the actress started giving a little bit with her behavior and her underlying things, but sadly they weren't developed.
Yeah. If I could change one thing about Scream 4, it would be that. I think that I would have added 15 extra minutes to the runtime just to get like 2 or 3 scenes where we understand Kate, them talking about Maureen. And I can almost understand Wes thinking, we just did 3 movies about Maureen Prescott, but still, there's so much dark history there. And it just feels like historically it just feels weak and weird to not acknowledge that more. So my flaws for Scream 4 are not original. And if you've listened to the podcast basically from the beginning, I used to be kind of harsh on Scream 4 back before Scream 5 and 6. And this is because of one, the deleted scenes. I think that the deleted scenes, almost all of them should have just stayed in the movie. I think they provide more context, more depth. They round out the characters more, especially like Jill and Trevor. I think that is really aided by the deleted scenes, the epilogue, the alternate opening. I think all of that should have been in there. And then, of course, like the Marco Beltrami score is a bit weaker than the original trilogy, I think, overall, and the look, the filter. This is a very common criticism. But to be honest, I have gotten over the filter and the score. I've accepted them because the score isn't that bad. But and the look, I kind of find it charming. I find it part of the identity. I find it part of the commentary. I've gotten over the look. I don't really give a shit. And with the deleted scenes, like even though they're not in the movie, there are still, extended versions out there on the internet that fans have made that you can watch, or you can just in your mind know about the deleted scenes and watch the deleted scenes along with the movie, and everything's great, so you can read them into the movie and give that fuller context and that character development that you miss in the theatrical cut. So, and I will say, here's the thing. I used to think that deleted scenes, score, and the filter, and the look, the cinematography, that these were immutable problems, that these were irreconcilable. And like, so whenever I first saw Scream 6, I actually my ranking was 3, 1, 2, 5, 6, 4. And it was like, within a week, that changed whenever I kind of started to really reckon with how terrible Scream 6 is. And all of the problems I used to have with Scream 4 melted away because it's like when you have such a hot steaming pile of garbage, Scream 4 doesn't my nitpicking of Scream 4 doesn't seem so bad. So, Pablo, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. And you mentioned the filter as something that everyone criticizes, or a lot of people criticizes and hates. But for me, it applies the same that I said about Scream 3 with the style exercise that it does with the comedy. I think the same applies to 4. And 4 is another style exercise, and the filter is part of it. That's why I accept it. Hey, you might like it more or less, but it's part of its identity. And now these ideas of removing it, whatever, yeah, but what do we gain by removing the filter?
Yeah. I agree with you. And like at this point, like I think that like to complain about the filter of Scream 4 is so boring. I just feel like there's so much more to Scream 4 than the filter. And again, it's part of the personality of the movie, like you said. I think that like one of my favorite things you've said and like the point you've made all of this whole recording is the idea of like each of the films having a personality and being and adapting to that new setting and new environment. And that's Scream 4 here. So, and Scream 4 is coming at a very unique time. Like I so stupidly, so naively, whenever I was young, I used to think that Scream 4 was flawed because it wasn't as like I wasn't tonally like Scream 1, 2, and 3. It didn't have the same look and vibe and feel and stuff. And I just feel like, wow, I was so dumb for that because like I love the Scream 4 vibe of and like it's just so distinctive about that time, that moment in time. And Scream 4 is kind of talking about, socially cultural things of the moment. So I think it fits.
Yeah, exactly. So I totally agree with that. If I can say one last thing about one thing that could be a flaw, and it's not related to the movie itself, but after reading the book, what's the name of the book? Your favorite scary movie?
Yeah.
How badly Kevin was treated in that moment. I think this destroys the whole mythology of this movie, and I love it, but oh my god, I felt so terrible.
Yeah. No, it's a shame and, it's a shame how everything went down. Regardless, I'm glad that Kevin's original intent and idea of Jill being the killer still survives. Still survived all of the horrible, 10 rewrites that he had to do, other people writing behind his back and the Weinstein's just being a pain in the ass to him. So, it's, I agree. So, all right. So we got through the good movies. I'm just teasing. No. So Scream 5 and 6. So Pablo, hit me with Scream 5.
All right. So with the other movies, I say that I have time because they're older. We have seen them many times, and we have time to reflect what's the flaw. But with Scream 5, because we have more, let's say, the experience of watching it for the first time at the theater, I remember one thing that annoyed me a lot when I was watching it, and it was when Sam comes back to Woodsboro and she visits Tara at the hospital. And then almost one of the first things that she says is this monologue explaining my trauma, what happened, all the things that I didn't tell you. And I'm the daughter of Billy Loomis. It's like, I hated it because for me, it feels pushed, forced, a lot of information at once that they have to deliver to make the movie move forward. Also, the delivery for me is not the best, but yeah, I mean, I know the movie is not about the mystery, about finding out at the end of the movie that Sam is the daughter of Billy Loomis. I know that. But since they started building this kind of mystery, there's something that she's hiding. And then suddenly, almost at the beginning of the movie, she vomits all this information at once. For me, it was like, okay, meh, could have been probably better. I'm not a writer. I have no idea. I couldn't have done it best, but I received it in a way that maybe they could have done it best.
Well, you know what? That is a very good jumping off point for Scream 5 because a lot of people have talked about this. And like, I mean, this was a central criticism of Scream 5 back in the day was not only Melissa's acting in this scene, the tell not show, and like the so weirdly written monologue, the whininess, the step by step pushing something in your face as opposed to I don't know. A lot of people have talked about not liking the script from this perspective, from explaining the origin story, if that makes sense. I think that that's a very fair thing to bring up here as a big flaw, and this is kind of the whole point of Scream 5. So it's hard to think about like how successful is Scream 5 as a movie when the big center nucleus of it, they missed the shot, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, it's a big thing, right? It ties with all mythology of the series. I mean, despite that, all the thing of Billy Loomis, I hate the CGI and all these kind of things. But I don't know. Also, I don't believe her when she tells all her story. I don't see her so broken that she did all the kind of drugs that fell into her hands because well, I don't think it reflects so much. I think it's a lot of things that put a lot of ingredients that they put on her character. And when she's delivering those lines, I don't believe it. And then when Judy is having the conversation with her, all the pain that you have caused to this community, I don't see her. Somehow I don't believe all this traumatic past that she has with Woodsboro before she left. I understand some problems, but not all this huge drama. So I think it's condensed in this monologue when she's explaining it, but I somehow don't believe it.
I think that that's actually a really good thing to bring up is that the Sam that we hear come out of the dialogue is not the Sam that we see and feel with Melissa Barrera in Scream 5. Like she comes off as like very well put together, very almost vanilla, not somebody who has done every drug under the sun, who, is this hard-edged bad girl who caused so much drama for her family, the community, vandalized, did crime, enough where she and Sheriff Judy have beef all these years later. So you're right. There is something about the characterization that doesn't match up. Now, the Sam in Scream 6, I can almost see it a little bit more, but the Sam in Scream 5, it doesn't add up. It doesn't what you're telling me is not what I'm seeing. So I think that's actually a really astute observation, Pablo. So thank you. So I'm going to go now for Scream 5. I have 3 things to go through. One is, and this is a very specific thing. I think that the party at Amber's house, before Sydney and Gail arrive, is not good. I think in fact, it may be my least favorite scene in any of the Scream movies. I just think that the party lacks the writing, the character work, the earnestness of the originals. It's just bad. I don't like the characterization of the new younger generation. I think that the set visually, it's terrible. I don't know why, but before Sydney and Gail show up, the visuals of the party scene, whether they're in the basement, whether they're in the living room or the kitchen, it is just so ugly. It's just it just feels so cheap. And then also just the character work and the action, Chad being outside, running away from Ghostface, in the shed and stuff that all just feels so TV movie-ish, they bought the plants at Home Goods or Target. But to put this next to Scream 1, 2, and 3, and 4, it just feels so out of place. It feels so juvenile. So I think that is a huge problem. The action, the tone is all bad. And that kind of goes into my next point, which is my friend Josh and I were talking today, and he said for him, the flaw of Scream 5 would be the physical space, not only the sets, which just make everything feel so small, but that the physical depth of the space, it lacks. There is no scope to Scream 5. And it's weird, as the franchise gets bigger and bigger and bigger and goes on longer and longer, somehow, 5 and 6 made everything smaller and smaller. It's a weird inverse, and I hope that Kevin reverses that. So Pablo, any thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, about the sets, I know they had problems because they filmed during COVID. it, and I know, of course, it has a lot of constraints, and I understand it somehow. It's a shame. Maybe if the situation was different, hopefully, I want to be positive here and think that maybe the result would have been different. But for example, the party, the house, maybe they're making so much effort on hiding that this is Stu's house
Yeah.
that's why everything looks so weird from the colors, the angles, and the framings. I don't know about Chad and everything. I mean, I hate Chad in 5. I hated him. I loved him in 6, I must say. For me, actually, they are different characters. I don't connect them at all. But I hated him. I hated his girlfriend. Sorry, I can't with her. I loved West, sadly, and is the first one to go, and it was a shame because for me it was the best one of the group. So yeah, this I agree. There's something that you don't connect with these people, with this new generation of group friends. I totally agree with you.
And people will say, "Oh, not wanting to move on from Sydney." But that's not what I'm saying. It's the quality is just not there. The quality of this party scene is not the original. The quality of these characters, like Liv, that is not the quality of Tatum. You know what I mean? In terms of the character and the writing and like the way that Wes Craven directed it. Like it's just invariably different. So there's that, but also, and like think about Chad like running through the bushes. Compare that to Sydney running through the field to to Kenny the cameraman and like, like it's just like it's so bad, So there's that. And the one thing I would be remiss not to bring up Dewey's death because this is kind of a very sensitive point of contention. Like if you poll Scream fans, half of them will say he died properly. Half of them would say that he shouldn't have died. And I don't know if I don't know if we can count this as a flaw, but I think it's worth bringing up because a lot of people, this is very divisive. And especially because of the way things ended up where we are back with Sydney, a lot of people feel as though perhaps he shouldn't have died. Perhaps this was a lazy way out of making them feel edgy, and acting as though they have taken risks, even though it was very obvious that he was going to die. So I'm going to just put a blanket over this and say Dewey's death would be a flaw, but perhaps not the act itself. Perhaps it is actually the fact that he died, but perhaps it's just the way it was done. Perhaps it was Sydney's lack of reaction, the fact that we didn't get to see her. The fact that Ghostface didn't call Sydney and say, "I just killed Dewey and you better get your ass back to town." That's a huge flaw. That's my number one flaw of Scream 5. And the necessity for her to come back. It just, you don't feel that gravity when Sydney shows up. So, and I think that a lot of people look back at Dewey in Scream 5 and just think, was it emotionally effective for Gail and Sydney? Yes. Did Gail have a great finale because of it? Yes. Was it worth it? Was it lazy? I don't know. So, Pablo, what are your thoughts?
I don't know. I mean, I think that, yeah, probably it makes sense. We hate it, of course. We hate the fact itself that it makes sense. I mean, maybe, yes, maybe, I mean, people said this a lot of times that maybe that was the only reason for Sidney to come back. I totally agree with that. I'm not, I mean, I'm pissed about him dying, and I totally forgot. Thanks for bringing this topic because now I know which my number flaw is from Scream 5. The thing I hate the most is that Dewey dies because Gail calls him in the worst moment. I hate it. I mean, why?
Yeah.
Why is her fault? Because in the end, she chose a bad moment, and because of that, he died. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Make the phone ring from Gail when he is almost dying, and then he sees an income call from Gail, and he says, "Oh my God, I can't talk to her to say goodbye." That would be amazingly emotional. But the fact that it's her fault, him being distracted and murdered, that pisses me off so much. Thanks for reminding me this moment. Thank you.
I love that. And imagine this. Imagine let's just say the phone never rings and he does get killed anyways. He's lying there on the ground and then he's dead. It goes silent and then the phone rings and we see that it's Gail. Imagine how much we all would have been bawling in the cinema. Like that, why is it that we are, spitballing? We've already shown 2 ways that this scene could have been even better than what it is. It's just like, frustrating. So again, I don't know where I stand on Dewey's death because a part of me does think that it is like, yes, we need to have stakes and people do need to die. But was it just a lazy choice of them to just say, well, we're killing Dewey? And also, is it fair that we never get to have a real trio scene as a goodbye, where Sydney, Gail, and Dewey are all in the same space? That's also a question. So, I mean, it's a very complicated thing. It's not just like a should he died or shouldn't he have died? It's like, to your point, it's the manner in which, there's so many things. So, one last thing I want to bring up is there are people out there who kind of think that Scream 2 and Scream 5 are the best quality, the highest quality. Yet they are the two movies that people tell me they think that Scream is boring. So some people say that Scream 2 is long and boring, whatever. I also get that Scream 5 is boring to people. I get it more often than not that people think Scream 5 is just flat out boring. Isn't it funny that, like, Scream 3 and 4, I'm not even talking about 6, they are kind of like the underrated sequels, yet you could never not say that they are entertaining as shit. What do you think, Pablo?
Oh my gosh, I don't see the point there. I mean, why? No, actually, five, if you think about it, can be even more boring and repetitive because it's a repetition. It's a
Mhm.
recreation. I know it's the recall, blah, 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 but it's the recall without any creativity or anything new on it besides killing Louis, right? So I totally disagree with that. Is that if you find five interesting and exciting and three and four boring, I think we live in different planets.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, last but not least, we've arrived at Scream 6. And if you've been living under a rock or you've never heard my podcast for the past 2 years, you would, I mean, I've been talking about the flaws of Scream 6 since it came out. And it's like, where do you begin? I have so many, and it's just like even trying to narrow down to pick one. I think if I had to say like an overarching thing, I think that the biggest problem of Scream 6 is the screenplay. The entire screenplay should have been gutted, should have been redone, different approach, different everything. But like specifically within the screenplay, you have Gail Weathers, like we've already even mentioned her. It's so hurtful what there's what we actually got from her, which is offensive and character assassination, but there's also frustration for what could have been. There's that. The finale is awful. The killers are terrible. It's so trite and redundant, but also just poorly executed. The writing of Sam, in my opinion, is so unclear morally, and it's so sloppy in the way that it's trying to do two different things with her. The core four is a forced concept so far down our throats. I think that Scream 6 is extremely immature. I think it has an ineffective opening in terms of Tony Revolori and the writing of Samara Weaving's character, horrible. And I think that like all of the acting in Scream 6, it's very inconsistent. I love to talk about the acting in the other films, but with Scream 6, it's hard for me to even pick an MVP because I think there are great things about some of the performances, but I think there's also truly terrible things about some of the performances. So, I mean, it's just the flaws of Scream 6 are immeasurable. So, Pablo, what would you say is your biggest flaw of Scream 6?
We have to pick one, right? All right. Okay, talking again about logic, and I told you that I enjoyed the ride when I was at the cinema watching it for the first time. It was a fun ride. It was entertaining, but then of course you start thinking of it, right? And ham sandwich. There we go, right? How
You just
come a
triggered
ghost?
me.
Yeah, right. But this is the problem. How come a ghost face would ever in life save a victim after
Yeah.
being stabbed? This for me doesn't make any sense. Of course, when you're watching it for the first time, you don't get it. And afterwards, especially when you are rewatching the movie, it's like, what the fuck? Why is
Yeah.
Ethan saving? Why? I mean, uh, because if she survives, she would have said he didn't help me. But, or I don't know, it doesn't make any sense. It goes against the logic of the movies. That's why it's a very entertaining movie if you want in some aspects, but as a Scream movie, it doesn't make much sense. So this ham sandwich thing, of course, then of course we go about stabbing people. 5,000 times, and then these people are still running or surviving or kissing or laughing, whatever. How can you even be breathing? It's impossible. This doesn't make any sense. And it goes against the logic again, talking about other kind of horror movie, probably in which people are superheroes. This, yeah, I mean, like, logic for me is very important. You saw it when I talked about my flaws of Scream 2 or whatever, and here it's lacks logic a lot. So that for me maybe is the biggest flaw in general.
No, and it's not even just like the logic of like the biological facts, right? Of like what Pablo is saying about like the stabbing, which is a huge problem in Scream 6. And like not only just like the number of stabbings, but like the way that so many people survive despite the stabbings, the way that Tara is able to climb up the ladder after she's stabbed in the back. Give me a fucking break. It's so there's that, but there's also just like the logic of like, who the killers are and like how they're manipulating the situations, like the logic within like their plan and like, who is where, when, how they're doing things, why they're doing them. And that's something that Wes Craven took painstaking detail in when with especially like the original trilogy, but also Scream 4, he had a passion for understanding like, where Billy was, where Stu was. And I just don't think Scream 6 thinks about it so deeply or so smartly. Do we believe that Quinn picked up, Gail Weathers, hot, hunky, probably 250 muscle bound boyfriend and threw him through the entertainment unit? Give me a fucking break. There are so many little things like that that just like it bums you out. It bums you out to think that this is how stupidly Scream 6 was approached. And we haven't even brought up the fact that, we have 6 survivors coming into the movie and we have 6 survivors leaving the movie, plus Danny, plus the date rape Frankie. So, I mean, like, there's no stakes, there's no consequences. Feels like a movie of the week in a way. It just feels like nothing happened.
I mean, you kill Dewey in 5 because you have to have this big moment and be brave. And then, as a miracle, everyone survives in 6, even after being stabbed 500 millions of times. So it doesn't, no, it's ridiculous. As my friend Rebecca, I won't remember the name of the actress, said, some of them should have died.
Alison Brie, oh my gosh, the iconic Alison Brie saying the core 4 should have died. Oh my gosh, she's right though. But you picked up on something too, and I think this is actually a really nice way to kind of start to wrap up our conversation. Is like, why did Radio Silence want to kill off not only Dewey but also Judy, 2 Wes Craven survivors in Scream 5, but then 0 of their own in Scream 6? That just feels that it feels wrong to me. So
I don't know what they had in mind, if they had a potential 7 in mind with a story and they needed all the characters. I don't know if this is the reason or they just didn't want to kill their babies. I have no idea. I think I read, it was in the book when they said that they made 5 as a tribute to Wes and as a tribute to the franchise. And this is the movie they needed to do. And then with 6, they took the freedom to do their movie for themselves. I think it's in the book, right? So
yeah.
maybe, you see, they did whatever they wanted to do. And it's a bit sad. Again, it's an entertaining movie in some way, but not as a part of a covering franchise. I think it breaks with the many, many, many points from it in a very sad way.
Yeah. Well, Pablo, this was a really wonderful discussion. I feel like so alive right now. This was such I feel like, again, like it was like doing a big exercise. I feel like just like, like I've worked through some therapy here. So, but also I feel like, we know and we're talking about Scream in really smart ways, and this is how people should. So, is there anything else you'd like to share about Scream right now that before we see Scream 7?
I'm just looking forward is the only thing. Since I know nothing, I'm just looking forward, and I really hope that all the expectations that we all have, either if we want it or not, there's huge expectations. So I just hope that we have a fun ride. I hope that Kevin does an amazing movie, and I just really hope the best for them because I think they deserve it, and I think we deserve it, and it's going to be super, super fun, hopefully.
Awesome. Well, Pablo, please tell everybody where they can find you online.
You can find me on Instagram at Pablo en la web. If you translate it into, it's like Pablo on the web, but in Spanish.
Awesome. Well, Pablo, thank you. And I look forward to hearing our debrief of Scream 7 and your unique experience as a Scream fan.
Please, looking forward. Thank you so much, Ryan.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this segment of Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me for the Taylor Swift Song of the Week. So this song is going to be corresponding with an episode we have coming out later this week. I'm doing a special Patreon episode for Alien Resurrection. It's my favorite movie in the Alien franchise that Sigourney Weaver was a part of. It's my personal favorite. It's underrated. It's so cool. I'm going to save everything for that. So every month I've been doing an audio commentary that's released just for Patreon subscribers. And this month the audio commentary was Scream 3, but I decided to release that to the public since Scream 3 is kind of like my trademark. So this Patreon episode is going to be about Alien Resurrection. It's going to be with my friend Josh, and I'm also going to do an audio commentary of that. That way we're all consistent here. And it's just a passion project for me. I love Alien Resurrection, and I love Alien in general. I try to float in Sigourney Weaver every so often to the show when I can. So you can count this song as the song of the week for this episode, but also for the Alien episode, because that's really the juice. But to help me with the Taylor Swift Song of the Week, Ashley, hello.
Ryan, how are you? Are your feet on solid?
They are on solid ground. I haven't been beamed up or in a cloud of sparkling dust. There's been no experiments yet. But you are the chosen one. First, before we talk about Taylor, I just want to know, have you seen the Sigourney Weaver Alien movies? No.
I've seen the first one.
Okay. What'd you think?
I liked it. That's all I remember.
Okay. Well, she's a really important final girl, and just she was nominated for Best Actress actually for Aliens. So I mean, like, that's really crazy. That's like Nev being nominated for like Scream 3 or something. So it's just it's very cool.
Let's just say the first time I ever watched Alien was with my version of Maddie Healy.
Goddamn.
Kind of ruined the movies. So now I think I might have to go back and rewatch them. Also, the first thing I ever saw in theaters to do with was Prometheus, which might have been one of my least favorite movies.
Prometheus is tough. I love the four Sigourney Weaver movies, and Prometheus was supposed to be the prequel, and I fucking hated it when it came out. So
I mean, maybe I have to get another chance, but I remember turning to my friend being like, can't they just do this at the very beginning? And then that's what ends up happening. It just ends. And I was like, why the fuck did I watch this? I also was watching it at like a midnight release, so probably like 12:30 at night, and I was just grumpy.
yeah.
So
Well, can I just sell you on Alien, at least Resurrection? So Resurrection is the fourth movie that Sigourney Weaver is in, and this is the fourth time she's played the character. In my mind, it is like the Sydney storyline of Scream 3, but the tone and the style and the structure of Scream 4. So you have Winona Ryder, who's kind of like the requel lead, along with Sigourney, who's like the main number one lead. It came out in 1997, so it came out in the Scream era. So I'm really teasing the Josh episode now. And this could be a pro or a con. I think a pro if you look at the substance, but a con, just if you look at the history, is the person who created Buffy the Vampire Slayer wrote the screenplay for Alien Resurrection. So it feels like, so if you like Buffy and if you like Scream, the vibes are very similar, in my opinion.
I really like both of those things. I think I need to give Alien another. It was just tarnished for me. I was like, "Ugh, never want to watch those again." But I do. But I do. I will need you to tell me if the cat stays being okay.
The cat's a survivor.
Okay, cool. I was just like, I just need to know before I go into it, because then I'll know. But like that cat looks like my cat, and I was like, I'm just gonna need to know how that little fella does because fella, lady, I don't know. I think it's a boy.
I think you're going to, my prediction, if Ashley does go and watch the four Sigourney Weaver movies, she's going to come out thinking, because of like your affection for animals, like whenever the alien kind of bursts out of people's chests, it is kind of cute. It's like a squirrel. So you may have some affection for the baby alien.
I've seen that, and I never thought squirrel, but maybe. But I need to give it another chance. There's no reason why I wouldn't like them. It's just one of those association things, and I think that. And I'm really sorry if anybody's a big Prometheus fan. Maybe I need to understand more of the background lore. I was just kind of sitting there like, I don't understand.
Well, so Ash, a long way of getting here, but like, so we picked the Alien song that Taylor Swift has in her discography. What is that song?
So the Taylor Swift song of the day is Down Bad. This is track 4 on the Tortured Poets Department, produced and written by Taylor and Jack Antonoff. And I would describe this song as kind of like an analogy for being love bombed, and the analogy is an alien abduction.
Well, I mean, this song, in my opinion, back whenever the Tortured Poets Department came out, and Ashley and I, we are going to be talking about another song coming up from the Tortured Poets Department called Fortnite on a future episode. So when the Torture Post Department came out, Fortnite wasn't so popular. That was the lead single. This song is track 4, A Down Bad Is. And I would say that fans really gravitated towards this song. I feel like a lot of people really took ownership, and this became a true fan favorite back then. And back then, like, I liked it a lot. I kept it at a distance. I don't know why, until now. And now that I fully like get the song and I understand the song, I've seen it performed on the Eras Tour last show. I have to say, I completely 1000% get the hype. My God. So what are your thoughts on the song?
Honestly, this was one song where I don't think I like realized how much I liked it until a little bit later on. I do find it funny because I agree with you on how people reacted to it, but it's so funny because people were like talking about Fortnite and how it's like not sad enough. And then their favorite song was like the one with like a really fun beat. And they're like, I love dancing to this. And I was like, what? Okay, I mean, fair, but whatever. But I really love this song just because I love how she says, like, did you really do all of this just to mess with me? Why did you do this? And comparing it to an alien abduction is such a fun way of describing what it's like to be in that kind of like beginning moment of a relationship, but especially when there's manipulation going on. Not saying that all aliens would be nice with it, just putting it out there. I don't think they would be, just in case they come. But I have to make sure people know that I'm on the side of aliens, just in case.
Just in case.
Just in case. But I just feel like she does like a really great way of explaining what it feels like to realize, like, shit, like I got screwed over, like maybe intentionally. Like I don't like kind of like reminiscing about why this person did it and what was like their motive for treating you the way that they did, and being like, did they understand what they were doing? Did they know what they were doing? There's a lot of experiments that Taylor full reference. Like she references like in the music video for Fortnite that this person's doing like experiments on her. And then in here she's like, you really beat me up just to do experiments on me. So all of that to say, I love this song.
You summed it up really well, but just like to give my like interpretation of it, like, and this is pretty much in line with what you said and what Taylor has said about this song, is like this song is about like the idea of like someone kind of like, you meet somebody, they love bomb you, you're in this really intense like relationship with them, or you're in this moment with them, and then the next minute they forget about you and they discard you, and all of that, like the rush and the adrenaline and the passion you felt from them, you had, and it kind of affected you and changed you and made you really happy. That is then taken away when they just dispose of you. And then you are just devastated. Like you fell in love with this person hard and fast, and then it's torn away from you and you don't know what to do with yourself. I have absolutely experienced this. I feel like this is also like a universal type of feeling that women and gay men possibly feel a lot as it pertains to men. And like the idea of being ghosted by somebody and they pretend like your little fling never happened. It is so stinking hurtful. And I actually thought of this comparison today. And for my Buffy fans out there, you know who this reminds me of is Parker, the guy in season 4 that Buffy dates when she goes to college. They hook up and then he basically never calls her again and completely ghosts her. I know this sounds crazy, and this is my trauma speaking again. We also just did New Romantics, where we talk about millennials who overshare, our scarlet letters. After I had gone through something and I watched Buffy season 4 again, I was like very like emotional, like deeply emotional about Parker in a way that I had never been really about anything else in Buffy. So I think that what Taylor describes here and the metaphor of being abducted by aliens, taken up into the sparkly, glittery place, and then dropped back down into Earth, and like that contrast of being like in this otherworldly galaxy, and then like just it's like and then being dropped back down to the most mundane, cold, boring life. I think that's such an interesting metaphor. So Ash, what are your thoughts?
As soon as you said Buffy, I was like, oh, can I talk about Parker? That little asshole. Ugh,
Awful.
he's just gross. Like the way that he treats her, like treating anybody that way is gross. I think when it comes to relationships, if people are on the same page, like, and like they're okay with everything that's going on, that's great. Clearly he wanted what he wanted, he got what he wanted, and then wanted to make somebody feel like crap. And I think that's what this song is about, is being like, wow, like you didn't care about any of it. And just like how hurtful that is, and how like you feel sick to your stomach being like, how did I not see this so clearly? But it's really not anyone's fault but the person who is the abductor in the situation, and just a jerk. And when they make you feel crazy, and I'm like, I'm not insane. Like I know this happened. And they're like, no, it didn't. And you're like,
Well, and to take the metaphor even further of the alien, so like there's the one aspect of like being taken from Earth, flat, boring, gray, to this otherworldly, sensational, brilliant place of outer space with aliens, different creatures you've ever been exposed to, and like that rush that you feel. That's an amazing metaphor to what it feels like to be love bombed, right? But then she talks about this idea of, did you really beam me up, blah, 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 just to do experiments. Tell me I was the chosen one. Show me that the world was bigger than us. Then send me back where I came from. It's like, and she follows that up saying, for a moment, I knew cosmic love, and now I'm down bad crying at the gym. And it's just, again, so she takes it even a step further, because that's a phrase people will use. People will say, like, especially like of like older men who date younger women or younger gay men. I've heard this often as a younger gay man, that people have said to me, well, make sure he's not using you like a toy, or, or playing with you, like doing, in other words, a synonym for that would be to do experiments, right? And I just feel like, wow, Taylor Swift really dug into something, a deep human experience here with this metaphor.
yeah, 100%. And I love how like she goes to something super mundane about being like crying at the gym, because that's such like a place where I think so many people would cry, is like, especially if they're like, you're in this gym with mirrors, like you see yourself and you're just like, you idiot, why would you do that? Why did you let this person manipulate you? And crying, like you're doing something, like trying to better yourself in some way with exercise, and then just like judging yourself so harshly for allowing someone to manipulate you the way that you did. But again,
Well, So, and the metaphor, we're going to keep going with this metaphor, strong, baby. So, did you take all of my old clothes just to leave me here naked and alone in a field in my same old town that somehow seems hollow now? They'll say I'm nuts if I talk about the existence of you. For a moment, I was heaven struck. And again, like, it's so, relating that to the metaphor of like somebody in a hot and heavy moment relationship, and then they're dumped and they're disposed of, never to be heard of again. That everything that she says there makes complete sense in terms of like, now everything, real life, normal life just feels so unworthy, not satisfying, but also the people that are in your normal life would think that you're nuts to think, oh, wow, you hung out with someone for a weekend, you fell in love, and I'm supposed to feel bad for you? Like, get over it. It was one weekend. It's not like you spent 2 years together. So I just think that she really captures what it feels like to be in this kind of situation where you feel like your life changes, or you feel like you fall in love, which she says, fuck it, I was in love. And then to have that just be taken away because of men playing the field or doing whatever they're doing or doing experiments on them.
First, I've always thought of like, did you take all of my old clothes as being like, did you take all the memories we've had and all the memories I had with the relationship I just got out of, and all of those things that made me me, just to like take them from me, just to like manipulate them and make them your own and leave me naked in the same place that I was before you left, like before you took me, like in the same sad place I was, because I was just in a breakup and now you're putting me back down in breakup still, and everything just seems so gross. And then saying like, they'll say I'm not. I mean, give me the fans for yelling, "Don't do it! Don't do it!" I mean, for a bunch of different reasons. But I think when you're in a state of being so sad, but also the exhilaration of having like the biggest tour on earth, the thing that you've always thought could be the thing that like was meant for you and seemed really tantalizing, and then realizing that it was just like a mirage the whole time and that it had no substance to it whatsoever, like cotton candy. Like, it's super sweet, but it doesn't do anything for you in the long run, except for maybe give you a stomach ache and a weird colored tongue.
It's so interesting because I've definitely been down bad for people who I know are terrible, that I know logically it shouldn't work out with them. It couldn't work out with them. Yet I'm still down bad crying at the gym over them just because of the way that they made me feel in that space abduction. It's crazy how deep she summarizes this situation, how relatable she makes it to everybody through this metaphor. And it's just a fun beat of a song. People love just like the vibe and the production of the song here too.
Love the production of this song. It's one of my favorites. So catchy and fun. And I will say, to all the people who constantly say, Jack Antonoff is so boring, y'all dance into this shit like crazy. So calm down.
Exactly. Well, Ash, thank you so much for joining me for this segment on Down Bad. Please tell everybody where they can find our encounters closer and closer on social media.
You can find me at Squirrel and Spud 9 on Instagram. There you'll find my Etsy shop, all of my really beautiful, perfect, amazing, including the Scream Game of the Week, which Ryan and I put out every Wednesday. And I hope that you'll be down bad for Screams.
And for Scream 7. Hopefully it's not like it's not an alien abduction. Hopefully it's like, the type of thing, like maybe Scream 7 is
did that movie theater.
Maybe Scream 7 is like the opposite. Like if the aliens would have kept Taylor on board forever, being, oh, this is great here. Life is great here.
Yeah, I love it.
All right, everybody. We will see you soon.
All copyrighted material used or referenced in this show belong to their rightful owners and made possible by the Fair Use Act.
And number 3, never, ever, ever, under any circumstances say, I'll be right back. Because you won't be back.
Get another beer, you want one?
Yeah, sure.
I'll be right back!
Dear God, Ryan,